Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. We got a very special guest for you to the platform today. He is a returning guest. He's taking the MMA world by storm right now. He is the machine. He is Mr. Malcolm Wellmaker, coming off of a huge first-round KO over Kris Moutinho, UFC Atlanta. What's up, my friend? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Life is good. You know, it's the week after the fight, just now wrapping up. And, I got home recently and just kind of letting the dust settle and wrapping my head around everything, man. It's good. Life is really good.
You know, dude, it's kind of crazy, man. I mean, we first met in 2022, Savannah, Georgia, Icon. I saw you for the first time, your second fight against Langston Sykes. You know, watch you battle it out on the regional scene from Conflict to NFC, Contender Series, all these promotions. You know, we've talked about this for so long, you know, the power, the mindset, you know, the marketability that you possess. Well, now we're really seeing it put into that next level. You know, you're able to go out there in Atlanta, get a fight in your backyard. We're able to pick up a huge knockout again, devastating style over Moutinho. And now, I mean, you're everywhere. You're on Air Hawani. You went to the Jackson podcast. Anthony Smith is talking to you. Kenny Florian, all these people. Are you surprised of how fast everything is going right now?
I am. Absolutely, man. Quick turnaround. I mean, much faster turnaround than I ever expected to have in my first two UFC fights. But aside from having a quick turnaround, I mean, best case scenario knockouts, bonuses attached to both of them. And I mean, this thing is just, you know, it's taking off like a rocket ship, man. Like in my dreams, when I imagined what my UFC run would look like, it definitely had a slower start than what I'm having right now.
You know, so you're able to take out Kris Moutinho. What an amazing knockout. And I think what a lot of people are not talking about was the setup to get there. You know, attacking right at the bat, leg kicks, shots to the body, you know, made him drop his hands a little bit, set up the hook. For you, going into that, was that what you, Jake, Joel, and Pops, was that the whole game plan from the get-go?
100%, man. The head was going to be the last target. You know, we wanted to open up with a lot of body work. And he gave me the leg as well. So, you know, I focused on the body, I focused on the leg, and, you know, tried to go up top after establishing the respect downtown. And that's eventually what led me to the knockout.
You know, that reaction from the crowd, I mean, it was going absolutely electric. You know, I feel like you had probably one of the biggest pops the whole night. You know, the song was awesome coming down to, oh, let's do it. After the finish, were you able to hear it? Did you hear how electrifying it was sounding in there?
Yeah, man. You know, even before, I mean, every moment of it was electric. You know, I knew it was going to be that way, but I tell you what moment did surprise me. You know, when I was getting ready to walk out the tunnel, you know, they pull the curtains and they do their little 10-second countdown. When they pulled the curtains, you know, the commissioner was standing in front of me counting down. And the fans by the railing were shaking the rails, and they see me. They was like, Malcolm, let's go. And I was like, oh, wow, like they ready. And the commissioner looked up and then looked back at me, and they was like, oh, this is going to be good. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be good. And from that moment is why when my song dropped, bro, it was a party from that moment all the way to the end.
Absolutely. You know, that fight was very dominant on your behalf. I mean, you won, I think, every single second of it. You were able to land some really tough shots on them early on in the fight, midway through that fight. Did you see any opportunities to maybe take him out a little earlier?
You know, yes, but no, because that kid is tough. You know, I know I got him out of there in 2.5 minutes, but even in that amount of time, he displayed a lot more toughness than I thought. You know, there was a moment where I got excited kind of pursuing the finish in the first minute after landing a left. And the reason why is because when I landed that left and I saw his knees buckle, that shot on many other guys, 100%, they're done. You know, and his ability to eat that shot, recover, and continue to fight as aggressively as he did was just super surprising. So, I mean, yeah, I thought I had a window to get him out of there earlier, which is why I got so aggressive and wild. But, I mean, he proved to me that he's tough and he's got his reputation for a reason.
You know, coming into the fight, one of the big storylines was, do you have more power than Sean O'Malley? You know, obviously, finished from the third round. He wasn't able to do what you did to him. After it said and done, do you think you have more power than Sean O'Malley?
I know I have more power than Sean O'Malley. Yeah, man. it was the whole narrative going into the fight. You know, I brought it up in a couple of interviews beforehand, and people, you know, on the internet were talking about it before I ever said it myself. Because you know, Kris Moutinho's obviously famous for being able to survive with Sean O'Malley as long as he did, and you know, Sean O'Malley's star power is somewhat contributed by that performance. So when I got lined up against him, and being known as a fellow knockout artist, the big question for everybody was, you know, can I do something Sean O'Malley couldn't do? And I mean, the answer is yes.
You know, I think it was really awesome. After the fight was over, all the fights were over that night. You went back to the hotel lobby about 1:30, 2
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning. And, you know, it was pretty cool for me to see. Obviously, you had Quincy there. You had your whole team there. Terrence was there. Andrew was there. Axel was there. You had your coaches. How was it to be able to, you know, come off a win like that, one that's putting this career in such a positive direction to you and, you know, get to celebrate with the guys that have been there since day one?
Yeah, man, that was the best part. You know, one of my favorite things. You've been at my local fights. Is, you know, going out and seeing all the people that came out to personally support me. It's always usually us eating some pizza, some wings, or something like that. You know, and just like, you know, sharing those immediate moments after a victory with the people I love, and to be able to do it on the UFC level. I mean, and then you saw how nice the Signia Hotel was. I mean, it was a beautiful place to share that moment with, and there was so many people that came. I mean, you know, we was there for a couple hours, you know, taking pictures, hugging, celebrating, and it was beautiful, man, because I could have had a whole UFC career and not had the opportunity to have a fight so close to home, and I got it that fast, and the whole night was just a dream come true.
First time that I interviewed you after a fight was Icon. I think it was October of 2022. You beat Chris Wingate. And after the fight, we were talking and you said, you know, one of my favorite parts about fighting is all my friends make me feel like rock stars after I get a big win like this. Yeah. Well, now you're getting love and affection from more than just your team, more than your friends, your family. You have a big fan base. Obviously, you're tons of followers now on Instagram. The whole MMA community is talking about you. Fighters, some of the best in your division, some of the best in the whole sport are showing love towards you. Is it surreal that we're at this point now?
Yeah, man. You know, I remember looking at all these people that's talking about me now. I mean, Aljamain Sterling made a post about me. You know, obviously, even before now, when I quit my job, Marab talked about me. Just all these amazing athletes that I looked at, you know, as these superstars and like these, you know, world-class fighters, which they are, know who I am, man, and are talking about me as, you know, as if I'm one of their peers. And it's mind-blowing to try to place myself in reality next to somewhere that was so high up to me in my mind. And it's just still, you know, hard for me to wrap my head around, but, you know, we're here now, so it's real.
You know, I think one thing that really separates you from a lot of other fighters is how calm you are. It's your mental, it's how poised you are. And you can really see it in the fights. I mean, you don't look affected by the nerves when you're in there. You're locked in. Everything is very accurate. It's very precise. You can see it in your movements. You can see it just, you know, in general. For you, how important to your success is this mental side?
You know, I think it's fighting is majority mental. I mean, that's kind of a cliche. If you talk to any fighter, they all say it. But like the gravity of that statement cannot be, you know, overemphasized, man. Like so much of fighting is psychological. So much of like fatigue, cardio is psychological. You know, we all get tired in there, but like, you know, someone's ability to maintain composure through the fatigue, somebody's ability to maintain composure when you're getting hit, or when you hit this guy with your hardest shot, which I hit Kris Moutinho with some hard shots. Bro, he walked forward faster and faster every time. You know, but being able to stay in a calm state of mind and having peace with your decision making in those split seconds is everything. If you allow yourself to get flustered, man, the best in the world look like the worst. So, you know, I pride myself on my ability to be in control of my psyche in these uphill battles when things are unpredictable like it is in fighting. And I think that's a large part of why I'm so successful.
You know, the people and fans that have been following your career for a long time, they're used to devastating finishes like that. You know, that's nothing new. What is new, it's your first time doing it with Walla around. What was it like after it to go back to where you were staying with your wife and your newborn and, you know, celebrate together?
You know, it was unreal, man. You know, I fought at, you know, State Farm Arena, And I get shuttled back to the hotel and go back to the Airbnb where my wife and baby was at. And my baby was crying. So my main priority at that point was to try to comfort him. I was giving him the bottle, I was bouncing him around, and at the same time talking to my family and my friends that was there. And it's just insane to be able to go from, and I mean just minutes apart, being the center of one of the biggest attractions in the world, and turning around and holding my child and feeling the importance of that moment over the fight that I just had. You know what I mean? Prioritizing his comfort, prioritizing making sure he's got everything he's need, a clean diaper, being fed. It's amazing. And I get to look at him in his eyes and think about, man, in a few years, you're going to go on YouTube and see what I just did before I came here to hold you. And it's so fulfilling and it's so beautiful. And I'm very happy with being able to have him in my life right now.
Do you feel like different or a changed person since the birth of your son?
Absolutely, man. I was afraid, to be honest, when I think about my child coming into this world. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I was still working a full-time job. A lot of it had to do with the fact that, thinking about where can I ever find time to be there for my son. And I've been fortunate enough that I am a full-time athlete and full-time father now. But even with that being said, man, I realized that the intimidating idea of having to provide for a child and be there for a child is very doable, man. You know what I mean? I'm capable of doing it. I'm capable of being the most ferocious and vicious person in that cage, and then coming home immediately and being caring and loving for my child and understanding and patient, whether he's crying or whatever it is, to try to figure out what he needs. And it really improved my self-belief and made me ready to see him grow older and be there for him as he needs me.
One thing I think is kind of cool now is we're at a point where you're looking on Instagram, Facebook, the internet, YouTube. You just appear on timelines. You have different MMA media outlets talking about you, people posting. Is it kind of cool looking through your phone and just, oh, there I am, there I am, there I am, there I am?
Yeah, man, I'm still a fan of the sport, so I love watching people examine the breakdown of how I set up the knockout. There's MMA content creators that I've seen before that are actually using my footage to explain their next technique. It's awesome. The edits that the fans are making are so fun to watch, man. They're having such a good time with the song I chose. It's fun. It's a good time, man. So I enjoy all the content. And to all the content creators, don't let it go unnoticed, man. I'm taking part in it, and it's fun, man.
Now going forward, looks like you walked away from that one relatively unscathed there. Does it look like you have any damage or any injuries to worry about? We still have about half the year left. In a perfect world, how many times do you want to be back out there?
I want to fight at least 2 more times, man. Perfect world is what we're talking about. 2 times would be ideal. But I'm not opposed to doing 3. You know what I mean? It depends on what fights come across the table, and am I leaving them unscathed and getting these outrageous knockouts, which I plan on doing. So as long as things go the course they've been going, I don't see why I can't fight at least 2 more times, maybe 3.
The life of a fighter is something that's very difficult and very few people understand. They don't really see it from the behind the scenes lens of what it actually is. There's a lot of guys who are vocal about it. It's like, I don't enjoy it. Like, this is what I'm good at. This is what I do to pay my bills. I win, whatever. You're a type of guy, man, you've embraced the grind. You battled 8 years to get to where you're at. You enjoy training. You enjoy helping your teammates. You enjoy the fight. You enjoy going out there, standing up and striking with those guys. How much do you love mixed martial arts?
Let me tell you this. So for the first time in my life, I went to California. And not only did I go to California, I got flown out to go to the Jackson podcast, which was an incredible experience. There's so many things that I saw for the first time. And there's so many layers to what people did for me while I was out there that made me just so happy. But one of the moments that I enjoyed the most about that whole trip was I had the podcast at 12, but I told my management I planned on getting a workout in. So my management lined me up with a mix session with their boxing coach, Yogi, at 11. Me and Yogi hit mix, and bro, that mix session was so good that I talked about it for the rest of the day. I'm meeting Rampage Jackson. I'm getting to wear this Jackson jewelry. They're giving me the first version of a watch that they just released. I mean, there's so much going on, and all day I'm constantly bringing up, bro, that boxing work was good. You know what I mean? Because I love fighting, man. I'm a student of the game. I'm a student of boxing. I love learning new techniques. You know, they had a beautiful ring set up. You know, it just everything about the experience, man. Like I love fighting. So, you know, I think that says a lot when I'm meeting the celebrities I've known for all my life. And one of the things that I'm talking about as much as meeting them is that I got some of the best boxing work I've ever got. So I think that it makes it a lot easier for me to want to do this, man. I can't say I don't enjoy this because I'm having as much fun as I can when I'm in that cage.
You know, one thing that I think is really cool right now is people are really to understand, you know, get to know a little bit about you, know a little bit more about your past. You know, on the Ariel Helwani show, you shared some of the stories of getting expelled. You know, we talked about this in the past, but I think that's the first time in a mainstream scale that you really shared that stuff. So one of the things I want to talk about was being expelled from high school. So there was like a concert and you have this theme of coming up with these tickets, like bootleg tickets, and like did like a little side hustle here.
Right. Yeah. So let me give you a little backstory before that. You know, I was one of the worst things this school had ever seen. It was a magnet school. You know, I got into the school because they do like standardized tests, and based off of the scores, they choose like the top applicants. And I did good. I was always good at math. I was pretty book smart. I was just a delinquent, right? So I get into this school, and bro, I am like one of the most problem children they've ever had. They've never had somebody be as rebellious as me. You know, I'm actually getting in fights at this school. They've never really dealt with that kind of stuff. I can't count how many hours of detention I had. Bro, I had so much after school detention that I have to go on weekends to make up the hours. Like, it was outrageous, brother. Like, I was a problem. So for a long time, they wanted me gone. But I had never done just enough for them to like outright kick me out. Well, that was before I ended up, you know, coming across this file on the public drive. So the school had a public drive where, you know, you could access the cloud from any computer at the school. Just so happened one day I'm scrolling and I found the theater portion of the school's drive, and they had the template for the tickets for the big upcoming show that year. And so first thing I thought was I can make me some money. So me and a good friend of mine, bro, we get this card stock, and we find out what colors they print in the tickets. And I mean, we go to town and we peddling tickets, and it was good. You know, everybody was buying from us because we was undercutting the actual pricing of the tickets. And when they found out, oh man, they started throwing all these like criminal terms at us, and like, yeah, I just was selling tickets. You know what I mean? I didn't realize how much of a crime I was committing, but it was enough for them to take us to like tribunal court, expel us, and send us to alternative school. And I had to finish my high school career at my local zone school. So it was fun while it lasted, man. And I got a cool story out of it.
So it sounds like you've been an entrepreneur from a very young age, and now we're getting to a point where obviously, you know, you're blowing so much up so quickly here. Are you really starting to see the business side of mixed martial arts now?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, with MMA and with the UFC in particular, you know, I think a lot of this game has to do obviously with opportunity, and aside from that, the ability for you to market yourself. So you got to know how to talk. You know what I mean? You got to know what's a good and bad look, I feel like, to some extent. But also, like I said, the opportunity thing, you know, the fight with Kris Moutinho was 11 days notice. You know, so both for me and him, being prepared for opportunities is a big part of the business. You know, this business moves fast. People are very forgetful. So fighting frequently, I feel like, is one of the most important things that you can do, being prepared to take good opportunities when you need them. Everybody loves a fighter that's game and can take a short notice opportunity. And I think that's part of the business aspect. So it's a lot more business than ever was involved in the local scene. But fortunately, I think the way I live as far as being fight ready is always good. And I like to think I know how to talk decent. So it's working in my favor.
You know, you said something, you've been saying something recently, and it's when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that's something that the Diaz boys have been saying for a very long time. That's the story of your career, in my opinion, man. I remember on the regional scene, I think those icon fights, you took that one against Langston Sykes on like 4 or 5 days notice. You know, you've taken a bunch of fights on 2-3 days notice. And I think when it came to the Moutinho fight, I mean, this is nothing new. This is what he's used to. How important has that mentality been in your whole career?
Yeah, you know, it's no secret that I started late. You know, my very first fight was at 23 years old, and it was kickboxing. So it was imperative for me that when I started competing, I stayed active and I stayed ready. Short notice fights have always been a part of what my career was built on. So it's not foreign at all, and it doesn't bother me, you know, having to cut weight because I'm always relatively close to my fight weight. I'm always in a place where I'm comfortable with my cardio. And I know that if any fighter is taking a short notice fight against me, I'm taking one against them as well. So the playing field is level, and it's probably in my favor because I know how I live, and I know that it's a consistent thing and has been for years. So, you know, my career was built on it, and I plan on continuing to build on that lifestyle.
You know, they asked you after the fight was over, Paul Felder asked you, who do you want next? You know, your response was, I want my team. Whoever it is, it's going to be the same result. You know, you've always been a kind of guy like that. You haven't really ever really called guys out. You just stay to your own. You control what you can control. Do you feel like that mindset, especially now with everything's going crazy, all these people are talking about you, all these different interviews, your name's out there more than ever before. Does that kind of, in a way, kind of keep you grounded and keep you in a humble state?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know my team. You know how I am, man. And you know, respect, humility, all these things are like very, very important to us. So it was really a natural moment for me when he asked me who I wanted next, and just the way he phrased it, my mind went to, you know, I just want my team in here with me. So and that's two things I feel like I can balance too: being humble, but being confident and aggressive at the same time. Because even though the first thing I said was, you know, the people that's with me is what matters most. The second part of it, like you said, was I don't care who's on the other side of me, man. You know, so it's a hard balance to strike sometimes, but it's one that I try to do. You know, stay humble, stay respectful, don't be disrespectful to get your opportunities. But when that other guy is on the other side of the cage of you, it doesn't matter who it is. You know, we're stone cold killers.
You know, you told me before in the past, you know, obviously MMA, it's a lot of highs, it's a lot of lows. You've been there, man. You have those days where you don't want to do this anymore. You were doubting everything. You didn't almost decide to give it up probably a few times. What would the Malcolm Wellmaker now say to the Malcolm Wellmaker then?
Man, if I could talk to the Malcolm Wellmaker, you know, even just a year ago, I tell him the success that you're about to experience is beyond your wildest dreams, and that is not an exaggeration because it literally is. I'm telling you, every vision of success I had did not look this good this fast. You know, it was a grind to get to the top and eventually get gold and like these hard, tough fights, which I don't doubt that I'll have to have. But it's come with so much success on the front end. And if I could show him and explain to him how magnificent just 6 weeks in the UFC would be, it make it so much easier for him to keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about being a fighter is you get to develop this platform, you know, especially being in the big show. You have this platform now, you have all these different followers. For you, what do you want to get across to your followers? What do you want to get across? What do you want to do to inspire the people that support you?
You know, there's a lot of things that I want to get across to my followers. But I think it's most of us fighters have an idea of the person we want to impact the most because it's who we used to be. I think all of us, you know, have a story and all of us had a particular struggle, and being who we are and in the position we're in, we feel the ability to help that person or that kid that struggled with the things that didn't know what the answers were. And, you know, for me, there was a lot of times where, like, you know, I didn't have direction. I didn't have goals. I didn't have, you know, a pride in the path I was on. And today, you know, I look back and, man, am I glad I found the trade, but I stumbled into it. Man, am I glad I found fighting, but I stumbled into it. And, you know, maybe it was by the grace of God, maybe it was destiny or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like I could have saved myself so much more despair if I had an example in front of me that was telling me like, this is a route you can take. Don't worry. You don't have to feel like you don't have nowhere to go. You don't have to feel like you're not going to amount to anything. You don't have to feel like you don't know where to place your value in. So for me, man, I want to be that guy that can tell the younger kid, hey, you can get into trade work. You know what I mean? And trade work can be a good living. You can buy a house with trade work. You can buy a nice vehicle with trade work. You can get a nice stable life with trade work. Or, you can become a fighter. You can be an MMA fighter. You know what I mean? I never thought MMA was a thing that we could live off of where I'm from. So, bringing that to the kids in Augusta, the community in Augusta, and trying to influence them to take one of those directions instead of a lot of other ones that people are taking is one of the messages that I want to get across the most, and one I'm planning on doing.
What do you want Walla to take away from this journey?
Man, I want Walla to take away almost the same thing. I didn't grow up with that tangible example of the person I wanted to be like, when I was growing up. I always looked at posters of Kobe Bryant, or I looked at, music videos of Lil Wayne. Like, that was the things that I looked up at when I was growing up. And instead, he won't have to look at a poster. He won't have to look at a video. He'll literally just look next to him and it'll be me. The guy next to him, the man next to him, the father next to him, is breaking so many different records and ideas and stereotypes, and showing him that you can get so much out of this life. And I just want to be that example for him and let him know that you don't have to look at a poster or a TV to see what you want to be like.
So far you've got to obviously meet some cool people. You got to experience some cool things. What has been the one moment where you're like, wow, I can't believe this is happening?
The one moment that I had that I can't believe this is still when I knocked out Cameron Simon. I knocked him out, and I didn't immediately celebrate. I walked over and took a knee, which I've done so many times on the regional circuit. And I just, for the first time in my life, heard the roar of the UFC crowd. And that's when I just felt the chills going down my back, and I just felt like overwhelmed with this feeling of knowing that the whole course of my future had forever changed.
Absolutely. All right, Malcolm, last question for you, my friend. We still got about 6 months left in a perfect world. How does this rest of this year play out for you?
So in the perfect world, with the 6 months left on the calendar, I 100% fight at least one more time. I'd love to fight twice. If I can get another fun fight in, one with a little bit more of a well-known name than, Kris Moutinho was a very well-known name, right? But if my next fight could be against a well-known name and a fun fight, I'd love to get one of those in, and then maybe follow that one up with a test before the end of the year. Let me go out there one more time. Let me have a little bit of fun. Let me go get another highlight reel finish, and then let me answer the questions after that. Let me answer, how good is my wrestling? Let me answer, am I good enough to fight the top 15? If I could do that by the end of the year, I think I'm rookie of the year, easy.
Absolutely. Well, Malcolm, man, it's kind of crazy to think, man, we were talking 3 years ago when you were 2-0, 3-0 pro. Now, you're blowing up. You're on all these different talk shows, and I really appreciate always keeping time for me, and it's been amazing to follow this journey for you, my friend.
Of course, man. Thank you for everything. Carlo, the Mystic Carlo, if y'all didn't know, he be predicting my fights months before they happen. He's done it so far. We'll see if he's right about the next one. We're going to keep that on the low.
That's it for us tonight. I'm Carl Prusa. He is the machine. He is Mr. Malcolm Wellmaker. Stick around, fight fans.